Twisted Christian back with another video. Today I'm going to be talking about certain things that could bring down the stock market, the Dow, or a combination of things. And some of these things I have touched upon in different videos, so I'm kind of putting them in one video, one short video. But for those of us who believe that there's going to be a revaluation, for those of us who believe that there's going to be change in the banking system, in the currency system, the central banking system, some type of global currency reset, and as we look at some of the things and events that we thought that were going to take place have not taken place yet, as you can see that the world is somewhat in chaos. There's still a lot of corruption element out there. But there's just a couple things that I want to discuss when it comes to that. But first, I'd like to thank you guys for your support on the Patreon. The links are down below in the description, as well as other links to support Twisted Christian. And if you guys are not getting involved with the stock market, there's easy and free trading. Robinhood is about the easiest platform. The links are down below in the description. Now, I begin to think about some of the things that could bring down the Dow back down to 20,000. Maybe that's our signal that the global currency reset. A lot of people saying that the markets are overvalued, the dollar is too strong, and then when you look at what's going on around all these other central banks and what they're doing, and they're talking of a global recession, they're talking of a lot of trade issues and just a lot of other things, but it's all leading up to something. And some of the things that I want to discuss specifically deal with there are some things that could bring down the Dow, back down to 20,000. Well, first of all, one of the first things is the big tech stocks, because you guys have to remember, and this is one of the reasons why so many people are afraid to invest into the stock markets, because they see the Dow going up, they see it going down. Every time the Dow has a bad day, everybody's like, man, that's why I don't invest in the stock market. Well, not every stock in the whole world is in the Dow. If you guys don't know, the Dow is only comprised of so many companies. I think it's like 30. So when you see when you see the stocks go down, it's hitting those particular companies hard. Right? When you see the Dow go down by 1,000, these are all the big tech companies. The big tech companies can pull it down. But the perspective I'm going to look at is, if you look at some of the biggest social media sites, I'm not going to mention them by name, you look at some of the biggest search engines, and you see that there is a war brewing on between the U.S. government and those social media sites, and the issue with privacy and dealing with conservatives and banning them and stuff like that, or shadow ban, or whatever you want to call it. So there's a lot of that going on. And I think at some point in time, and I know that there is an investigation going on with all these different companies. So if for any reason they begin to start charging these companies and saying they violated laws, and they knowingly, like CEOs and stuff like that, and executives knowingly violated laws even after they were warned by this administration, and they kept doing it, we're looking at some really big things that could really bring them down. Okay, really bring the Dow down, because you hit some of these big tech companies and these big companies that are in the Dow, so an SEC investigation and all that into these companies, if they're finding things, that could be a part of an influence of why it could come down. Now, is it something that can bring it down from where it's at down to 20,000? I don't know. I don't think that would be a single incident that could, unless it was some really scandalous things that would come out. I don't really expect to see those things to come out. Maybe not until at least within the next 6 months. Some of those things have, and if you follow Q, you already know what a lot of those things are concerning those big tech companies. So when I mention that particular letter, and you guys know who that is, and you know the things that they have said about those companies, but you know that if they ever did a full-fledged, released a bunch of information made some arrests and stuff like that concerning all of that, concerning some of these big tech companies, yes, it could have a dramatic effect on the Dow. Not sure if major scandals concerning those companies would necessarily bring it all the way down that much, but it could be an aggravating factor in combination with something else. Now, of course, we already know the next thing is the banking system collapsing. If the banking system collapses, the Dow is going to go down. And and I've been showing you guys articles. I've been showing you things. They've been buying gold. They've been cutting rates, and they've been doing all these things over the last 10 years to try to strengthen their economies of their countries, and they're trying to deal with all this debt that's out there, right? But in an implosion of the central banking system, we definitely do that. Going into a recession, now there's a lot of talk about a recession. They are talking about that as a worldwide recession. So it's not going to be anything that Donald Trump is doing. It's not going to be anything that one person is doing to cause this. This is something that has been bubbling up for a long time, for many, many years. And that's why the central banking system built up their gold reserves, and they were diversifying their portfolio and all these other things, right? But it's not working, right? You cannot run a system on this much debt as this world has and still try to maintain it. It's never going to happen. So if the banking system collapses, yes, that could also bring down the Dow. Now, when we talk about the banking system, we're also talking about like the mortgage system, because now they're talking about the mortgage system. The mortgage system is collapsing. A lot of bad loans. There are a lot of banks out there, and the executive of banks created all these fake accounts with all this fake money coming out. I mean, they were creating these fake loans to do with this money with who knows what, to feed themselves. But eventually, all that debt is going to catch up to the system. Whether it was a good loan that went bad, or just bad loans in general, or fake loans, right? I told you one executive, 21,000 fake accounts with fake loans. Okay, that's a lot, and that's just one bank. So if you see an implosion of the banking system, which we're going to see anyway, that's going to lead us to the global currency reset. Let's just hope that it happens soon. So, but in that, I'm not worrying, but I know for a period of time it might seem like it's going to be rough for this country or any other country that you live in. You're looking at high gas prices. That's one reason why I am invested in the U.S. oil stock markets, right? And depending on what country you're from, and learning how to invest in those up and coming companies that are in your country, so that you could benefit, as well too. Now, the next thing that could bring down, one of the things that could be an aggravating factor, and it could really bring down the dollar and our economy and everything else. Just tell me what you guys think when it comes to there's a lot of conspiracy about this, is whether or not if we have all the gold down there in Fort Knox, right? If President Trump was to come out and say all the gold is gone, what could an effect could that have on our country, the United States? And then that would have a ripple effect across the world, because regardless of what you think about the United States, most economies move based off of the United States. For all those of you in the Middle East and Africa who are oil-rich countries, or you guys produce a lot of oil, for the last 30, 40 years, 50 years, your countries have been benefiting from the United States. So we've always been a leader in many different areas. So if our central bank came out and said that we don't have the gold, that has been stolen or it's disappeared or whatever the case, that could have a devastating effect on a stock market. And I think the next thing is, which is going to be very important, and it's going on right now, and I think this is going to trigger a lot of different things, because anytime that a lot of politicians are caught up in the scandals or anything else, You got this war going on between the Democrats and the Republicans uh, here in the United States, and it's having a devastating effect. And those effects are kind of underlying right now, but you're going to see them really come out. And let's just let's just take for a moment, if they actually try to proceed with an impeachment, it's going to cause the Dow to go down. It's going to cause there's going to be some unsureness about the stocks and the stock market. So people might be going to gold and other things. But if they do proceed with this and they try to continue to go all the way, that could have an effect on what's going on. But at the same time, the President of the United States has also said, especially those who have listened to Q, the President of the United States has also said that he's going to release all these damaging things about the Democrats, right, if they continue to pursue this. That's why recently, for the first time that I've ever seen, is seeing Donald Trump tweet a curse word on Twitter. And people are saying that he's growing more and more angry with what's going on with the impeachment, and so he's getting ready to release a lot of the stuff. Now we know what's going on with the spying campaign by the previous administration back starting in 2012 of not just Republicans but also their own party, and also when Donald Trump decided to announce he's going to run for the President of the United States, which was after 2012, they began to spy on him too. It's one of the biggest spy campaigns, corruption and scandals that it's there in the news. The court documents are there. And, when this all comes out to where the mainstream media has to report this, it's going to have a devastating effect on our economy. And he said that he's going to release a lot of information about the Democrat scandals and corruption and all kind of other stuff. And I think what he really meant by that was, because if you follow the President of the United States before he became president, he mentioned that the Clintons were going to have a problem with the whole Mr. E, right? And Mr. E, I'm putting up on the screen of who that is, right? And if you don't know who that is, you need to research that name. I don't bring up the name because every time I do, I get issues when I try to upload my video. But that spans across some Republicans, but mostly Democrats. A lot of the victims that have come out have stated that they have been with politicians, American politicians, foreign politicians, but all of them that have been named so far, except for one or two, have been all Democrats. And if you do any real research, and not just going by mainstream what CNN is saying, because they're not telling you everything, just like they're not telling you what's going on with the banking system, just like they're not telling you what was going on in the Mr. E case, because they're not telling you the truth of what's going on with the Mr. E case, because Mr. E case is going to destroy politics as we know it. And I think a lot of people fail to realize that the network that this person had, and he was basically a pimp, and that's why he's so well connected to the politicians, and he's also connected to the banking system. You guys don't know how deep he is connected to the banking system. We're talking about in other key figures, and that's why I say, when I've said in one of my last couple of videos, that you're probably going to see about 10 months before the election, you're going to start to see a lot of information come out about Mr. E and the women and the reports of which senators and representatives and politicians and all that is going to, some of it's already come out. You know they're not telling the truth. So I think with this whole impeachment thing going, and then if he decides to go ahead at some point in time to start, when the federal government starts releasing all these interviews and they start arresting people for what they've done, you can see how it could have an effect on the stock market. Because think about it, right? And I'm saying this only because that some of the things that I have read and the names that have been mentioned. Imagine one of the Dow 30 companies, one of the the companies that's in the Dow, if their CEO or several high executives were involved with Mr. E, and they were arrested. It was all plastered all over television. And let's not forget about trials, right? All this is plastered all over TV. Well, what is going to happen to that company's stock, especially if it's the CEO? Then I can really see this. And a lot of people say, oh, Mr. E doesn't have anything to do with what's going on with the global reset and all this stuff. So I've really had to, do a lot of research into that, and just, guys, without me having to mention stuff, this whole Mr. E thing is going to destroy politics as we know it. You will probably rarely believe another politician again. You will have lost faith in the system. I'm just putting that in. That's something that I've wanted to say for a long time. So these are just all the different things that I just think that could be a combination of things. We look at the impeachment, the whole Mr. E, and then any of those tech companies that are involved with Mr. E, the banking system. Yeah, the banking system, and then whether or not the gold is gone. And the last one would be, if there's just any kind of major conflict somewhere. If dang near another war broke out in it's somewhere in the Middle East, and you have more than several countries involved, or major countries, where either Americans have to get involved, or whatever the case is, where we got to send troops and stuff, I think that could have an effect on our economy too as well. Because there's always going to be fighting somewhere. There's always going to be some kind of war somewhere, or some kind of conflict. But it would have to be like a really major conflict. They'd have to maybe do something with Israel and Iran. So I just want you guys to keep your hats. I just want you guys to be aware. I really want you guys to watch these impeachment things that are going on, and do your research on corrupt bank officials. I'm telling you, there's a lot of lower level people being arrested right now. A lot of lower people, and people you never heard of. You might find articles in other countries. It's not just here in the United States, but it's a lot of other places. So, but anyway, guys, if you guys like my videos, don't forget to go to my Patreon and click on monthly support. And I'm just going to keep making these videos. I'm going to keep posting stocks, because we are on a journey to financial freedom before the dinar, before the global currency reset takes place, and we're become independent, so we don't have to worry about some of these other investments. We're going to be digging wells, and I appreciate you guys who are on that same journey as I am, and that you guys are watching, and you're listening, and you're commenting, and I appreciate all of it. And with that, Twisted Christian out.